specifically real estate finance. Anybody wants to go first?
Oh, okay, sure. Hey, I'll start. Hopefully it's working. Okay, right here? Is this good? Right here? Okay. My name is Kelly Clements. I am the Chief Lending Officer at Cincinnati Development Fund. I got into the world of community development when I moved back from Dallas to Cincinnati back in 2005. And had an epiphany when I was in Dallas that I was doing some project management work and really became suddenly aware that the words community development kept coming through my head just randomly. Go for walks and I'd think about community development and I didn't even know what that meant. When I moved back to Cincinnati after being away for 5 years, I thought, well, I'm gonna just see what that means. But I need security. I need retirements. I need all these things. And it turned out PNC Bank was hiring in community development and National City at the time. I was lucky enough to get a position there in the community development banking group and was there for about 6-7 years doing lending and investing in the Cincinnati area and Kentucky. But my real passion from day one turned out to be new markets tax credits. And my very first deal was with Cincinnati Development Fund back in 2005-06. And that was when the Uptown Cincinnati Development Fund happened and Uptown Consortium was involved and it just turned into this whole thing. So for years I've done new markets tax credit, historic tax credit, was a relationship manager, managed the originations team at the end of my career at PNC, and was thrilled with the opportunity to get to join CDF just 5 months ago. So everybody be nice to me. I'm new. I'm going to be looking at him a lot going, what was that about again? But it just really hit, it was this epiphany that happened around community development. And sure enough, it was my true love. And I didn't even know what it meant at the beginning. So all through that time, it's been about getting to work with people like everybody in this room, learning where your passions are, where you want to go, how you want to get there, and then helping make that happen. And Cincinnati Development Fund's been a great way to do that and really making some really neat dreams come to fruition.
Kristen?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kristen Baker. I'm the Executive Director of LISC Greater Cincinnati. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But in terms of what brought me into this work, I am not a finance person. And in fact, I used to count on my fingers until I became a waitress in college and had to understand money and math. And so that got me in much better position. But, finance has always felt incredibly intimidating to me. And so I'm glad that all of you are here because I think that it's important to understand the different tools and options available to you. So I'm in this space because of, as well as Kelly, community development, right? I know that neighborhoods, my passion is neighborhoods and making sure that all neighborhoods have equal access to the tools. What we heard the keynote speaker talking about at lunch really resonates with me that we need to do better and be better. And these tools that we're able to bring to neighborhoods and to communities really help us to facilitate that. So whether that is affordable housing or commercial space in a neighborhood business district, these are things that we know are really critical to people's success and opportunity. So that's why I do this. But yeah, I'm not a math person, I'm not a numbers person, and I'm not a finance person, but I guess I am now because of the work that I do at LISC. But really, I'm about the people and what do the people need to help us get there together. So happy to be with you.
Thanks, Kristen.
Good afternoon. Name's Isaac Ivory. I'm a Cincinnati native. Grew up here, went to school, and graduated from Withrow. Oh, we got some Tigers. Yeah, okay. Went to University of Cincinnati, was a finance major there. Now, I'm a little different. I've always been a math guy. So when I first got out of college, I was at Fidelity Investments. I was a stockbroker there, so I've always been doing finance. When I left Fidelity, I decided I wanted to start working for myself, so I started wholesaling real estate properties. So that's how I got in real estate. I lost so many deals, not understanding the finance aspect of the deal, that I decided I'm gonna learn that side of the ledger and get the capital, and then start educating people on not messing up the way I messed up. So I'm happy you guys are here. I hope you guys got some questions. I got some answers.
All right, love it. And for me, I'm Joe Huber. I went to Withrow High School. Thank you. So Kelly and I do work together at CDF. I got into this world of community development finance 18 years ago. Prior to that, I was working at Fifth Third Bank for 10 years. Had a great start to my career there. Had no idea what I wanted to do with my life coming out of college, and got into finance for some reason and stumbled into this great world of community development finance. So I feel very lucky to be in this space, which again is all about collaboration and putting tough deals together. When you think of what is community development, I mean, that's the big thing that always hits me, is like very important projects that just don't make sense because they cost more than they're worth, and for a variety of reasons. Maybe you're trying to do affordable housing, maybe you're trying to do historic preservation, maybe you're trying to do business district revitalization in neighborhoods that have suffered from decades of blight. And so these are the types of projects that are important to the community. It blends mixed income, mixed use neighborhoods, which we always feel are the strongest neighborhoods. So it's an exciting space to be in, and I'm grateful every day. So now you've heard about the individuals on the panel. I would like to walk through a presentation where they're each going to talk about their organizations. And again, the topic is alternatives to traditional financing. So there'll be parts of this where there's a lot of similarities, and there's going to be parts where there's differences. So there will be plenty of time to ask questions. And I dare say if anybody has a question, I mean, it's Friday afternoon, please stop us if we say too many acronyms, raise your hand, and we should dig in, because there's a good chance if you miss something, then we misspoke, or somebody else has the same question. So Kelly, we're going to turn it off to you to talk about the Cincinnati Development Fund. Right here.
Super. Okay, again, we're going to be looking at this guy every
that
once
on?
in a while.
Is that on?
Oh,
if
it's on?
I don't know if it is.
Is it on? Can you hear me? Hello? No, I'm good. Thank you, though. Thanks for inviting me. So Cincinnati Development Fund was created in 1988 by a handful of local banks who are really looking to just disperse some risk, right? I mean, just share the risk to really do some important affordable housing financing, community development, which again, it costs a lot more than monetarily it's worth. It's invaluable. Community development, economic development is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on it. But for banks, they do put a price tag on it, and it's upside down. So banks came together to form Cincinnati Development Fund in order to share that risk, spread it out amongst one another, so that no one was bearing more than they could really handle. And at that time, it was really done to support affordable housing. They were doing LIHTC, but low-income housing tax credit development, which was not permanent at the time, I don't think, which was very complex, high risk, high cost, and it just wasn't something that people felt very comfortable investing in internally to create those programs. So they created something to handle it for them. That grew into doing more mixed income and more of that community development work and market rate housing, and then historic preservation, and all those higher risk elements that, again, the risk could be shared. Eventually, we became a CDE, a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, that is managed through the U.S. Department of Treasury. We became a CDFI, and then eventually a CDE, which is a community development entity, which is that entity that allows you to do new markets tax credit deals. We're not going to talk about new markets tax credit deals today. Sadly, that's my favorite thing. But we became a CDFI, a CDE. We got into the new market tax credit business, and that's where we really just took off, because being in that business allowed us to grow our income so that we could step away from having to be funded fully by banks and we were able to self-fund loans. We also were working with the CDFI fund to get grants. We were working with OFN, which is an organization that is sort of a coalition of CDFIs, and able to get grants through them. We're working with the city, the county, to get more and more funding so that we could become a little more independent and step away from that bank pool type lending that we had been doing for so long. So the slide there kind of shows the impacts we've been able to have through the various programs we've done, but needless to say, we have gone from doing a smaller volume to a huge volume of loans and investments throughout the city and county.
Okay, good. So CDF, Cincinnati Development Fund, and LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation, are CDFIs. And just so, because we said CDFI a few times, Kristen, before you get into talk about LISC, can you kind of talk about what a CDFI is? We've got the slide up here too.
Okay. I told you I am short. Thank you. So CDFI, so we live in alphabet soup land in this space, so I apologize again. CDFI is a community development financial institution, and we were really created to mitigate risk and to make loans in places and on projects, as Joe and Kelly mentioned, that the traditional banks were not comfortable in providing finance, and we can all make some assumptions about why that was, but that this is why we were created. So we are, really a CDFI's mission is to be embedded in the community. We are a nonprofit, so that is a difference between us. We are really mission driven, and that also means that there are certain kinds of projects that we can invest in, and there are certain kinds of projects that don't necessarily fall into our financing wheelhouse. So there are some guidelines that come through, as Kelly mentioned, the U.S. Treasury Department that oversees us and provides us with this certification that require that we do lend in low to moderate income census tracts for a certain percentage. Certain kinds of projects are preferred and prioritized, et cetera. We also have boards that direct our work, and they also would reflect the communities that we are designed to serve. We're also very active in the community, so the lending is a part of our work. It's a big part of our work, right? But also, as Joe mentioned, providing technical assistance, reviewing your pro forma with you, helping you find other pathways if the project isn't quite right for our financing, and really being involved and embedded in the community. A lot of our work, which I'll talk about in a minute, is really rooted in neighborhoods and helping neighborhoods really drive their priorities in terms of what's happening in the community and how do we make that happen. We also can take on higher risk typically than the banks. As Joe and Kelly both mentioned, really our work is about trying to finance those projects that otherwise you can't necessarily walk into the bank and say, hey, here's my deal, and they're saying, yes, we love this and we can do this. It's because oftentimes these projects have a much lower return, or they're upside down, or they don't, they're not necessarily able to produce a balance sheet that makes the lenders comfortable, but we can generally work with you on that. We also work in collaboration with the larger community development ecosystem that exists here in Cincinnati. So you can see those partners listed here. I know we all work closely with the Port Authority, with the city government, with county, with all of the municipalities around Hamilton County who are looking to bring activity development, real estate activity to their places, and try to really lean in and make sure we have the people power and the organizations that can help bring this together, and the development community to support that work. And then we also, CDFIs often have focus on things like healthy food financing. How do we address food deserts? How are we making sure that we're bringing green, getting us to net zero, having, climate impact, and of course, affordable housing is really a cornerstone of our work and our financing as well. Did I do that right? Okay.
You want to talk about LISC?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I'll keep going.
Keep going.
You do, okay, you guys good with this? Okay.
All right, well, you get it up. I have a joke because it's Friday afternoon. This is actually a quiz. What country's capital is growing at the fastest pace?
You're asking me?
What country's capital population is growing at the fastest pace?
Oh,
Not Columbus. Good answer.
You said country and I said state.
It's all right. Geography doesn't really matter.
It's not math or geography.
It's Ireland because every day it's Dublin. All right. Thank you. My daughter taught me that one last week.
I did not sign up to be part of a comedy duo, okay? I fly solo. All right, so now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about LISC.
That wasn't supposed to be a hardball.
Well, I feel embarrassed now. I said Columbus is a country. All right, sorry. Okay, LISC is a national community development financial institution. So while Cincinnati Development Fund is exclusively local, focusing on Cincinnati, LISC was founded in the late 70s as a response to, a philanthropic response to the uprising in the Bronx that we heard our keynote speaker, Ms. Carter, speaking about. Thank you for joining us. We were created by the banks and philanthropic organizations, most notably the Ford Foundation, to try to create some financing solutions to support communities that we know have been historically and intentionally disinvested. So this is our mission. I'm not going to belabor the largeness of LISC, but we are very large. We're in 38 cities around the country. We've been here in Cincinnati for 24 years, and we were brought here to come in alongside the work that CDF does in supporting neighborhoods, community development work, and of course using the financing tools that we have available. But we're a little bit different because Local Initiatives Support Corporation. You can see why we just call ourselves LISC. It's not the smoothest on the tongue. So LISC does really kind of three major functions. Lending is our core work. It's our business that we've done. As you can see, we've done quite a bit of it since 1980. But we also do a lot of grant making, and we do a lot of grant making for capacity building, particularly for community development corporations. We also do a lot, people in Cincinnati might know us a little bit more for a lot of our housing work, leading around of housing affordability conversations, and also driving public policy at the local, state, and federal level to really help advance housing and help with healthy communities. So we're a little different. CDF doesn't make grants to nonprofits, we do. Then we also have several affiliate organizations who do a lot of fund management. Please don't ask me any questions about that. So this is just a little bit of our national scale of impact, just to give you a sense of the kinds of things we've invested in. And we also are sort of a newer trend in the CDFI space is becoming S&P rated. So we have an S&P rating so we can go onto the bond market to secure financing, in addition to having banks lend us money, usually because of their Community Reinvestment Act requirements. That's often why they invest in us. So talking a little bit about LISC's loan products and projects. So what I would say to you is that CDF is a great place for folks that are starting, for all kinds of development, right? But CDF's going to have a little more flexibility in working with emerging developers than LISC will, just to be perfectly honest. We have a little bit of a different credit box or credit lending priorities as CDF. So that's why we're good partners, because there are things that we can do here. We can often provide larger loans. For instance, we can go up to $10 million. We can go as small as $100,000. CDF has different ranges and more flexibility, which I know they'll touch on too. But we do offer a range of financing products here, as you can see, and these are the kinds of projects that we are best suited to finance. Here in Greater Cincinnati, we've done a lot of work on providing loans to developers and community development organizations who are using new market tax credits or state or federal historic tax credits, because that's a loan product type that the banks don't necessarily like because it's 7 years, and to bridge the tax credits. So we are able to do some unique products there and sort of fill a space with larger development projects. When you're borrowing from LISC in particular, but I think this is also about CDFIs in general, right? It's like so when you're talking with a lender, what are you trying to do and why? How particularly again, in our lane, we really want to understand how this is impacting and benefiting residents in disinvested communities in a meaningful way. And where is your project? Do you have site control? Do you have a pro forma, or is this just an early idea? And, we can sort of also help route you towards maybe some technical assistance if you're looking for, if you have some gaps in your project. We work with a lot of repeat borrowers, but we also love talking to new. So we're always out looking and chatting with you all and understanding what projects you're working on. And then, of course, when you're borrowing from any kind of financial institution, we want to know what you need the financing for, and also how will we get repaid and in what time frame. And so if you want this is on our website. I have a QR code I'll put up in a second, but we also have flyers. We have a table out here on the first floor. You can stop by and grab this, but just to give you a sense. And I do want to just say that, as Joe mentioned, we get our money from the banks, right? So the banks are not giving us 0% money. Shocking. So we have to borrow the money at an interest rate. We also have to add a little bit to cover the costs of making loans, right? So yes, our rates are not the cheapest in town, but I will tell you that when you're with us, once you're in with a CDFI on a loan, we will work with you until the bitter end to make sure that your project is successful. When you're doing these kinds of complicated projects, you're gonna hit unexpected roadblocks, right? You're gonna have something come up that you did not expect, and so that's the advantage. So I would encourage you not just because this is self-serving somewhat, but don't just look at the interest rate, right? Like, interest rate does matter, yes, it matters to how your project pencils out, but you also need to think about what the relationship is, right? And how you build those relationships. And I think that's something we all really pride ourselves on here. So you can see we offer financing from pre-development all the way through, as I mentioned, bridge loans. We do offer a working line of credit as well, and we also do some permanent financing, particularly for low-income housing tax credit projects. That tends to be really our best place. So here's my little QR code. I feel very current doing this. So our website, this will take you to our website. So please, and sign up for our newsletter, get to know us a little bit better. And we are kind of a hidden secret here in Cincinnati, and happy to see all of you continue to do your work on your projects. Thanks, Joe.
Wait, don't go anywhere. This is a chance for redemption. What is the capital of Ohio?
That is Columbus.
Yay! All right. Yeah, I'm failing as a moderator. So, as we were putting this panel together, the three of us are all in the same industry. Obviously, we have a lot of fun together. We know what CDFIs are. The secret sauce is we're not regulated, so that gives us a lot of advantages to make loans that banks can't, and we're nonprofit. So when traditional banks have to pay out dividends and shareholder returns, we don't. We put all our money right back into our mission. So that also is kind of like similarities between the three of us here. I think this is the guy at the end, Isaac, that you're really going to want to hear from, because as we were all preparing for this panel, we're like, what's hard money? It's like, sounds cool. So, and as Isaac started to talk, it was clear that this is an avenue that everybody's going to want to know about. So you're welcome to stay there if your microphone's working.
Yeah, we're good here.
Okay.
So who has heard about hard money? Okay. Hard money is alternative capital that's not institutional. So it's not going to come from a bank. It's going to come from private investors. Let me tell you how Boost came about. So I started Boost in 2019. It was Boost My Credit. I was doing credit repair. Remember, I've been in finance always. Had clients asking for business credit. So I started to add business credit to what I offered. And then had some of those clients start asking about financing. So I tapped into my old network at Fidelity, got in touch with some people that had connections, start building those relationships and those capital partners, and we just moved completely to capital and left credit alone completely. Private money and hard money is the same thing. So the difference is private money is typically going to be an investor just on their own, willing to lend money, and they set up their own terms with you. Hard money is a little different. It's going to be syndicated. So you may have a few different investors put their capital together. They trust somebody to do the financing and managing of those assets. And then those people bring the deal flow to them from their capital. So it's still the same sources, just one is grouped up, one is just individual. The thing about hard money that's important for you to understand is because it's private, there's a lot of things that can be done. There's a lot of speed that you can use to get deals done. Now, if you've been in real estate and you've tried a deal, we all know that time kills all deals. That's the main thing. So that means you got to be able to have the capital available to execute the deal, or somebody else is going to steal your deal. That's why hard money is so important. When it comes to development in different projects, if you cannot do acquisition and get that particular project under control, you're going to lose it. And somebody with the capital is going to come in, swoop it, get it for a good price. And if you've been to Cincinnati any time, you see all the changes that have taken place from people that have had the capital and have grown the city totally different than what we used to be. But that's because most of us didn't understand how to get the capital. We didn't have the relationship. So that was the main reason I was like, okay, I need to get on this side and understand how to get access, how to have these relationships. So then when people like myself want to do some things, I got a source that can get it done for you. But I'm not just a hard money lender. I'm a little bit different from them. I'm an alternative lender. So I lend on real estate. That's a niche that I have. But I have so many different capital products. I really match banks. So I have lines of credit. I have term loans. I do business acquisition. I have partners that are in venture capital. So I have a lot of different sources of private capital for different deals. But we're just talking about real estate. So with real estate, I kind of just focus on the hard money and making sure I do have some other capital sources if you need a permanent financing, bridge loan. So a bridge loan is basically, say you need to acquire asset quickly, but you have permanent financing coming in 6 months. Maybe you got an SBA loan. That usually takes a time. So you'll use a bridge loan just so you can acquire the asset, not lose the deal, refinance out into your SBA at the better rate. So there's a lot of different products, capital products that are available for you. Let me see. I got permanent financing, cash out refinancing, ground up construction. So as we see in the city, most of our properties in the city are very old. And when people couldn't acquire those properties at the right price point, you start seeing people start doing ground up construction in different lots. And now those homes are pushing up the value in certain neighborhoods because they're brand new. So that's ground up construction. We have that. I got debtor and I got DIP financing. So DIP financing really deals with a company that's going through bankruptcy. And the judge tells that particular borrower that this amount of money is needed to get this deal out of bankruptcy. So that's what type of financing that is. So I have a lot of different products available for people in different situations, but it's going to depend on the deal. Let me.
No, he's in control.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure I got the same thing. The other thing is I'm national. So because my capital is private, I'm not just local in Cincinnati. A lot of my deals are in different places. As you'll see in some of my case studies, did one in Covington, I have one here in Cincinnati, but this is different areas. So the capital is available wherever you may be at. Um, that's really it for right now.
Okay. Great. That's a great overview. So we've heard a lot of kind of similarities between these organizations and some differences. So one of the questions I always get when we're talking about, and I don't know, is there a way we can send this out, or does anybody? Huh? It'll all be on the app. Thank you, Sarah. One of the questions we always get at CDF is where does your money come from? Because you're not a bank, so everything you lend has to come from somewhere. So where do you get your money from to lend?
Okay. So CDF, like I said, we had been more loan pool driven, where we had multiple banks that came together to create funds. We've moved beyond that, but we still rely heavily on banks. We still rely on banks to provide low cost, long term, what we call EQ2s, or equity equivalents. It allows us, they're dollars that we can use to lend in a variety of different places and not need to turn around and repay it, right away. We've got time, it's a lower cost, which allows us to keep the cost low for you. So that's a big one, is getting those dollars from banks. And like Fifth Third, Western Southern, another number of organizations provide us that type of lending or equity equivalent on an ongoing basis. We also have a lot of grants, federal grants, state, local, like I said, OFN, the CDFI fund. We get a lot of funding from them, again, that we can go out and have some pretty flexible lending around. We also get funding from the city and county, like the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund, the ARPA dollars, things like that CDF can use to fund affordable housing. That's not our money, it's their money, but we're a conduit for that. So that's another resource. And then, as I said, as we moved into being able to make our own loans, have our new market tax credit fee income, we use that fee income to then turn around. We're a nonprofit, so we reinvest in our own organization. That money doesn't leave CDF. We're able to use those dollars to then turn around and loan as well. So it's direct lending straight from us.
I have a question.
Yep, please.
Absolutely.
What is the interest rate typically on your boost loans?
Interest rate's going to depend on the product. So if we're going to, let's talk about just a regular hard money fix and flip loans. Typically going to start about 10%. The thing you have to understand when you're dealing with private capital is, I'm not nonprofit, I'm for profit. But the other thing is, we only deal with deals that you guys make money. So let's say you purchased a house that you knew was worth $250,000 and you acquired it for $100,000. And let's say you only needed $50,000 to repair it to get it in its best shape. We would lend you, I have some products where I would lend you 100% for the acquisition and 100% for the renovation. So you would do in your calculation what your profit would be after you pay us back. And that's kind of how you have to look at hard money. You don't want to look at it like traditional financing. You want to look at it as, I'm going to access this capital for this period of time and complete this particular project so I make this profit. That's how you have to look at it. You cannot look at it like you go into a bank to try to get a 30-year mortgage. It's not that type of product. But if you switch your mind to realizing that you're here to make a profit on this particular amount of money and the time frame, you'll see so much value in the money.
Like flip or flop?
And I'll also add, you won't get 100% acquisition financing from really anybody else. So that's important to know. If you need 100%, this is where you're going to go, because we won't do that. Banks won't do that. It is a
Now
quality.
it's a very unique product. I cannot give it to everybody, but I have it available. So if a person qualifies for that, we can do 100% finance. But typically, we're going to be about a 90% LTV. And if you don't have if the project is not very good, or I'm not going to say not very good, if the project is more risky, of course we'll need more skin in the game. That's kind of how it goes about. But, and that's for everybody, you know. Skin in the game is going to be important because we know that you're committed to the deal. That's, you know. Now, 100% finance, you got to be a very strong profile. And the deal got to be a very good deal. Where we're like, okay, we're willing to make that bet. But that's deal specific.
That's really good. I mean, you as developers and contractors, you know it's all about risk and reward, and obviously that's the same with banks or CDFIs or hard money lenders. And we all have our own risk tolerance. The one thing I think we probably all share is, like from our perspective, a bad real estate development isn't good for anybody. So like the last thing we want to do is enable somebody to make a bad mistake. So sometimes our best decisions are no, and maybe it's not a hard no, maybe it's like not yet, not now, because over our 36 years at CDF and I know LISC and Boost, it's not fun to be a lender on a bad real estate deal. It's not fun to be a developer or contractor, and ultimately, it's not good for the community itself. You know, a lot of times we get an application. It's man, this is small business wants to go into one of our emerging, maybe it's Walnut Hills, or maybe it's Avondale, or maybe it's Price Hill, and we like really want this for the neighborhood. And yet, if that business doesn't survive, that space could sit vacant for 2, 3, 4 years. And I know my friends from Price Hill Will are here. That's just really hard to come back from. So I wanted to impress that upon you. A lot of times, no is really hard to take, but in the long run, it's sometimes the best.
Well, and can I add too that, you know, developers, you're all optimists, right? Like you all want, you're going to do it, you're going to make it work, and we believe that, right? And we see that, but it's our job you're going to present us with your best case, right? You're going to say, this is this is what I'm going to make, this is my return. We're going to analyze it from the side of, let's dial this all back, right? And what if it's less, right? What if your profit is only this, right? What if you can't charge this in rent if it's a rental property, or you can't get this at a sale price, or you can't collect this commercial, revenue. So that's our job, and that's what you need to understand too, I think, is that you need to also look at your project from all of those angles as well, because it's not, we aren't saying no because we just want to say no. To their point, we're saying no because our analysis, and we all have experts on our teams that do these really, and it is not me, that do these deep financial analyses on these projects to understand what are all the variables that could change the financial outcome and ultimately your ability to repay whatever kind of financing you're securing.
There was a question back here. Yes.
I have a question from Isaac. So it sounds like you've done some deals in the area. And so if you could just give us a typical profile or in the neighborhood where you typically see some success. Just an example.
Go to the case study.
What?
At the case study, it's one of the last, he's got 2 at the very end.
Let's stay with that one right there.
This one here?
This project, the investor found this property near Main Strauss in Covington. So anybody that knows that area, that's a bar district, so it's a very good area in Covington. Oh, I'm sorry, right. Acquired it for $125,000. I believe that they bought this property from a wholesaler. So the property probably was $110,000. Wholesaler maybe put $15,000 on it. We still did the whole acquisition with the wholesaler fee. Took care of that for them. They put $68,000 in it, $68,000. It appraised for $280,000 because they wanted to keep it as an Airbnb over there in that part of town. So they made a nice profit. Was able to pull some equity out, keep the asset, cash flow it. So there are always opportunities in every neighborhood. You drive by them all the time, and that's kind of the eye that you'll have to have as a real estate investor, developer, is to see see those opportunities and be willing to take those chances. But they're everywhere. Of course.
Back to that case study that you just had up there, I know you said that they decided to keep it. I'm sure that I come from banking also, I've
Yeah.
spent years of banking experience. I'm sure that when you're designing like what is the best product to offer them, you're considering like what are your goals? Is it flipping? Is it holding? Do you go back and try to work with your clients in order to make sure that they're still in the proper product? And then also, second part, my initial question was going to be, do you offer DSCR loans? And if you do, can you explain to the group? Because I get that
Sure.
question often from like a lot of my investors that I work with as a realtor.
Sure.
So yeah.
So when it comes to a project, there's only two ways to get out of a deal. You sell it or you refinance. That's it. So you got to know your exit strategy of what you're going to do with the property before you begin. This particular property, initially the client wanted to sell it. Backup plan was to refinance, pull equity out. So that's why they did that. Took a DSCR loan, pull the equity out, keep the asset, rent it out until they can sell it a little bit later. So you got to be able to pivot. You got to know your exit strategy. You got to kind of think this thing through.
Can you explain what the DSCR is?
Debt service coverage ratio. So the property has to be able to cover the debt. And if it's a certain percentage that different lenders have a different requirement. And that's one of the best things about working with someone like myself is I may be able to get to 1% DSCR, where another institution, you gotta be at 1.25. You know, I just have access to that type of capital that can do some different deals. Question, go ahead, in the back.
Does credit score factor into your loan process?
Absolutely, credit's gonna factor into any type of deal, but to be honest, the asset is going to really determine if the deal can be done. So
Basically what I'm asking, if I have a very good deal, but our credit score is very bad, what's the odds of that working for me?
there's odds, but what's going to happen is if you got very bad credit and a good deal, they're going to want more skin in the game. They're going to want you to put some money up to say, I believe in this project more than normal. If you got the money, the deal can be done.
And you might even, like if you have a friend,
Absolutely.
call a friend. It may be a situation where if your credit's not quite good enough, that I'm sorry. I should have said you.
Sure.
That's on me, sir. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'll go with if one's credit score is not, in the range of being something that a lender would find acceptable to make a direct loan. The other option would be, do you have a family member, a friend, a partner, somebody who has the wherewithal, who believes in your dream, who believes in this project, that can step up and provide a guarantee with you, or in place of you. But that's when it's really good to know you have a good network of people that get your plans. But that's certainly an avenue that you could take.
Question, so does anyone have a product that you can base the approval on just the rent itself and not your credit score? Usually, I had a client from New York, and he was using a DSCR loan, and he was putting down like 20 to 30%. And every property that we purchased, we did it multiple times. Every property that we purchased, he put down anywhere from 20 to 30% and created a new business entity for each of those. These were not established entities; these were entities that he was making during the process.
So, I mean, I will say we have made loans where we've not factored in personal credit scores. We know there are things that happen beyond our control that causes medical bankruptcies, et cetera. So we really do try to view it in the lens of like how can we make this deal work? If it's a deal that, and our sort of decision-making framework is comprehensive. So is it something that the community wants and supports? Does Price Hill will support this type of development? We don't want to just, as speaking for ourselves, finance a standalone transaction that is just for monetary purposes. But if the neighborhood supports it, if maybe there's a track record that the borrower has of pulling off something like that, that can factor in. Are they using a good contractor? Are they, like, there's a lot of mitigating factors. So I kind of resist the temptation to say, like, we can't do it if you have bad credit. We really, really try to give every opportunity to say yes.
Yeah, and I would add too that, especially if you're a solopreneur, right, or you're starting your business, your personal credit is your business credit, right, and that is something that is hard when you are trying to make that pivot. So we do look at other factors beyond, right, to understand what in totality is happening with a borrower. The other thing I would add is that what you're describing is not uncommon. Lots of our larger developer partners will create a separate LLC for every single project, right? Like that's kind of the way that they are able to manage that deal. So but I think you have to be at a level of volume and having deals under your belt to, I think, entertain that kind of structuring. But it definitely is out there.
So when you talk about risks and rewards, I mean, why is non-traditional financing important? What are banks and traditional lenders afraid of, particularly right now? What's going on out there that may be a reason why a developer might not get a loan from a traditional bank?
Well, risk is the big one, right? Right now, risk is huge. Construction costs have been going up. They've maybe started to come down a little bit, but just trajectory has been northward for quite some time. Interest rates are problematic. Other development costs. Insurance right now is a nightmare. All kinds of, it's getting more expensive. It's getting harder to get. Depending on where you live, you may have a surprise flood insurance issue you didn't even think about. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So there's these other development costs that are kind of keeping lenders away to some extent. There's also a capacity issue, like the appetite. What are banks really willing to put their money in right now? We've seen banks kind of pull back from new developers altogether over the last few years, where they're like, if you're one of our top clients and you're doing something that's safe and you've got it pre-leased and it's a no risk situation, sure, we'll do that. But if you want to do, a hotel coming out of COVID, no. If you want to do office, absolutely not. If you want to do retail, probably not. If you want to do a restaurant, whatever it is, all of those things that have been sort of made taboo because of what we've been through over the last 4 years. When banks pulled back from doing hotels, they went all in on apartments. Now they're pulling back from apartments because their portfolios are too heavy with apartments. So it's like they're just, all of those things factor into a bank's appetite to provide financing generally, let alone to maybe emerging developers or folks doing smaller deals. So that's my rundown.
So
Yeah.
what's the list of what can you do?
That's a great question.
Great question.
That is a great question.
Certificate of deposit.
Yeah, how much money do you have to put on deposit? Do you have treasury management? Where's the fee income coming from? That really is legitimately at the heart of some of it. It's not, and I'm not trying to make, again, banker friends here in the audience, not trying to make anybody out to be, it's not the worst situation ever, but it is more challenging. So right now, it really is, you kind of got to be at the top of your game to really get that more traditional rely on that traditional financing from day one.
Yeah, you have to understand what's happening in the larger economy, right? And now and the cost of construction, and especially in Cincinnati, right? Like to do new construction of a single family house here in this market, in these conditions, it's like, and depending on what community you're building in, the price of building that is likely going to exceed what you can still sell it for, right? And so that in and of itself, especially just with a for sale product, is just going to be really, really hard. Yes, our housing market here is still fairly hot, but it's all about can you get the comps, right? I mean, you know, so it's like there's more at play here than just saying, I know I can do a great product, and the bank's saying, you bet, we believe in you, right? The banks have been, you know, we post-COVID times, everyone's still worried about, we had a horrible foreclosure crisis that was really, really painful here in Cincinnati in 2008, particularly in some of the neighborhoods that we're still working to support and help them reach their goals. It's just really still tough. So the banks have less capital right now, and they have less long-term capital, which makes financing harder. It makes all of our deals much more difficult. And then with the costs and the labor market as it is, it's also just really hard too. I mean, go try and find somebody to pour your driveway or or frame your house or put the roof on, you know. I mean, it's really hard. Time is money, as Isaac has so wisely said. So we just are in a tough place right now, but I feel like things are getting better. I think we're starting to feel like a little more optimistic. Hope you are too. Isaac, can you?
How I see it when I speak with some of my banking partners is each bank has a different appetite of what they want to have on their books. Some may only want multifamily. So if you want to do retail or something else, they're going to tell you no. Or some may only want single families. So if so if you got a multifamily deal, they'll tell you no. It may be a good deal, everything else, but each bank has an appetite for the assets that they want on their books. So that's the first thing you have to understand when you're dealing with your banking institution is, okay, what do you want to lend on if you're going to go to that institution? But the way the economy has been, the way we have an election about to take place, there's a lot of risk that banks look at when it comes to lending. Nobody wants to have another 2008. And banks really don't want to have assets that they take back from people like they did before. So they're going to really be very stringent on who they give capital to. And you just got to understand that you can have a great deal, you can have a lot of money at your banking institution, and they'll still tell you no, just because they don't want to take the additional risk at this period of time right now, because they don't know what's going to happen in November, and then when that takes place, there's going to be some changes in capital, and it's going to be some changes in what they want to lend on and everything else. It happens every time. So understanding where you are holistically with the market is going to be important for you to understand your deal. You know, if you're looking at single family, okay, you're probably going to need to deal with someone like myself. You know, multifamily, there's some banks that like multifamily, so they'll still do that. But just really depends.
This is great. We got about 15 minutes left in the scheduled time. We have some case studies that we can go through, but I encourage any more questions. This is really, yeah, go ahead.
Could each organization state what's the minimum dollar amount for their loan products? And also, Isaac, can you share what are your terms?
Okay. Minimum loan value that I'll be able to do would probably start about $50,000. So that'd be the minimum of the loan. Terms are going to depend on the deal. It's, you know, so a different deal, I can provide different terms. It's really hard to say. I don't have a general deal flow. It depends on the deal, and I may source the capital from a particular private lender that may be able to give you better terms than another one. So I may have some options for you. But typically, let's just say hard money, fix and flip, you're probably going to start about 10% on interest. That's just normal when you're dealing with hard money, because you have to understand how they get paid. They are giving you a short-term loan. They expect you to accomplish your business goal of taking that asset, transforming it, creating the value for who you're creating the value for, and then getting out that particular deal fairly quickly. So the terms are usually going to be start about 6 months, longest will be 24 months of how long that particular product will be available for you. But they expect you to get out of that. That's the whole purpose of that particular type of deal is you have a business plan, you're going to execute this, this, and this, get out, either you're going to sell the asset or you're going to refinance it and keep it.
For us, minimum would be 50,000 is the lowest we would do, and that would be just for pre-development or for a mini permanent loan. Everything else is 100,000 and above, and up to 10 million.
And I'm happy to chime in for CDF. So, you know, we do, as Kelly had talked about, we do pre-development loans, early stage capital. We do construction loans that are for single-family home sales, or maybe we're bridging a tax credit investment. We do construction loans that convert to long-term loans. So our term might go out 10 years. Every deal is truly handcrafted. So we've done $100,000 pre-development loans. We've done $100, rehab loans for single-family homes, but we've gone up to $4 million. In fact, this morning we were at a ribbon cutting. Kelly spoke at Emerge Manufacturing, which is a local business owner, Cynthia Booth, and it is a large manufacturing company of PPE that is on the former Cincinnati Gardens site. And it was a startup manufacturing company coming out of the pandemic. Very important, but really could not get any bank to stand behind it. So that was a situation where, like, we've never done anything like that before. And because the local players, because of the importance of the deal and the way that we were able to mitigate it, a $4 million loan. So the dollar amounts can fluctuate. It's more important to be responsive to what the need is. Looking at Brian out there, is one of our, he's utilized some of our products before. It's like his deal looks different than other people's deal. Like every deal is different. Yes, sorry.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
flipping the script.
Yeah.
So how do you become an investor with your company?
Let's talk after.
Okay.
In the back?
Do any of your loan products pair with traditional commercial financing? And if so, would you take a subordinate lien position when you have to have the superior lien?
Yes and yes, actually. We do partner with other organizations. We'll do participation loans with other CDFIs, with lenders. We do take subordinate positions when we need to. It just kind of depends on the underwriting of the collateral and the guarantor and all of that. But yeah, we will take.
And then if I could just tack on one thing. No, I mean, because it also depends from our standpoint of, like, where are we getting our money from? So, like, if we are getting a grant from the federal government to do energy efficiency, and you want to do something that is going to be brand new windows and brand new insulation and maybe solar panel, whatever it is on a building, you're not going to be able to get first mortgage financing on that. So if we have a source of capital that we can plug into a subordinate position, we'll do that. Similarly, if we get a grant to support storefront repopulation, so maybe it's a mixed-use building in a business district where there's 4 apartments on top of a coffee shop. A bank is not going to lend on that coffee shop income. So there's a chance that if we got the right capital to plug in, we could go subordinate. So again, it depends on the deal, but it also depends on what are we lending.
Yeah, and I would say right now we don't have a lot of appetite for subordinate debt, but it's deal by deal. So we can always talk about it and understand what the structure is and who else is in the project, and we can get comfortable. Yep.
And I'm the same. Of course, depending on the deal is going to determine where in the capital stack we want to be. Some deals we may look at being mezzanine. We may do pref. You know what I'm saying? It's going to depend on the size of the deal, who has that first, how much is actually needed, and still what that particular investor is going to bring on the equity side. So it's deal by deal basis, but yeah, we have that as well.
Would you also do mezzanine in a business deal as opposed to pure real estate?
It's going to depend on the business. It's going to depend on some other factors. But we don't, I'll just let you know, we have also started collateralizing other assets besides just real estate. So we also collateralize IP. I have a client that has patents that are able to be collateralized. So it just depends on the business, what's going on, and we can be creative.
Question?
Are these slides gonna be available with the QR code so I can share with my partner?
Yes. Sarah said we will be able to distribute to all the attendees this on the app.
On the app, on the conference app.
Do you have the conference app?
Yeah, we get it from the, okay.
Yeah, you'll get it for the conference.
Is that something she can share with her partner, business partner?
You should be able to download it.
Okay.
Yeah, you take it.
Not sure what that means, but she's shining a yellow thing at you, so.
Yellow? Okay. Does that mean we're wrapping up?
It's supposed to be subtle, but.
Okay.
I'm gonna share everything, just advice, kind of, it's my son.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, since I'm almost 70, he helps me out a lot, you know.
Yeah, I think if you get from the app, and you'll be able to download that.
Question?
So Joe, you mentioned about the energy efficient, loans. So will your organization be a source when the state receives the money from the inflation?
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, this is a good one. Yes, CDF and yes, LISC. So.
So we, LISC and a lot of other big organizations are part of a national coalition that was awarded $2 billion from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Now, all $2 billion does not come to Cincinnati, but our focus is going to be on multifamily, either new construction or retrofit to sort of get towards net zero. And then we, interestingly also, if you are a homeowner, we are also going to have product for single-family homeowners to be able to make green investments in their home beyond just solar panels, right? So also energy-efficient appliances, et cetera. We don't have the details on that yet because it's federal government and they move at the speed of, zero. So we're still negotiating some of these things, but that will all be coming out hopefully early next year, as well as then there's lots of other sources from the state. There's some solar investment from the state, from a state agency. There's some other resources. So all of that is going to be starting to get more firm in terms of what these offerings look like very soon.
Great. Nah, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, that's the benefit of being a non-regulated lender. Is like we can take advantage of those resources and quickly spring into action when the money starts flowing. We don't know when, 5 months ago, they're like, we need to get this out the door because we don't know what's going to happen in November, but it still hasn't started flowing yet. This has been a great session. I've been so happy to be part of it. I think maybe it would be helpful just to kind of like quickly page through, just over 2 minutes, these case studies, because our panel here put together some slides, and it might give you a flavor for the types of financing that we have done in the past. And again, every one of these is different, but the first one I saw was a single-family new construction in Lincoln Heights. And this developer, the way they found their way to CDF is he had been financing everything with cash, and that worked until he had his cash into like 2 deals, and then he couldn't move on. So by coming to CDF, we were able to work with him, and even though he had done a pre-start construction, which is kind of a no-no, anytime you go to a bank and you've already started construction, most banks will say, sorry, we got to get our lien waivers and our mortgage in first priority. We found a way to get comfortable with this contractor. It was somebody that the local port authority had worked closely with and had already approved. And so this was a situation that could have easily been a no, and we found a way to make it happen. So it's single-family new construction for sale in Lincoln Heights. This here was actually in Lockland, and it is a deal that Sarah in the back was the loan originator on. And this borrower came to us, and she just fell in love with this building. It didn't look anything like this when she came to Sarah. And it's in the middle of Lockland, which is it's an old business district that has been,
Where I'm located.
Yeah, all right. There we go.
Unfortunate people right now.
So this is a city that we really want to support, and this was a developer that brought this building back to life, and it's kind of a unique purpose. She's actually a photographer and has an art studio and photography studio in her space in downtown Laughlin. So many of our loans we've made over the years, it wasn't about credit score. Sometimes it wasn't even about the project itself. It was the character of the person you're dealing with and the heart, like the heart that they had to bring this property back to life. And then this was something we're very proud of, and it's something we worked with LISC on and a lot of community partners, Children's Hospital and City of Cincinnati. This was it was a community development corporation. Avondale Development Corporation owned this land in Avondale, and very committed to having more home ownership opportunities. Not only home ownership opportunities, but affordable home ownership opportunities. That's all relative these days. Like, what is affordable home ownership? It used to be $160,000 was affordable. Now you can't even get into a home for the reasons Kristen said, for under $250,000 in some cases, because it's so expensive. Well, this is an example, 7 attached townhomes. By the time the development, Isaac, you said time kills deals. Like, this is like 4 years that it took to put this together. 5 years. Construction costs probably doubled in that time. And so while they came to us with here's a city money, here's the Children's Hospital money, here's LISC money, and here's all this, this is a no-brainer. Well, the gap kept shrinking. And that's something, it's not at all uncommon, especially these days, but kind of a testament to LISC and to CDF. We got it done. We not only made a loan for the development, but to the contractor, Kai Luars, who's been an exemplary contractor and developer here in Cincinnati. And we stayed in it till the very last unit was sold. So like a typical deal is the bank wants to be out by the time 5 of the 7 units are sold, and the rest is the profit for the developer. In this case, we all collectively stayed in to the very end, and it was a good example of kind of all's well that ends well. It's a great development, but it was tough. Barrister, Kristen, you want to talk about that? Oh, there we go.
I will say, so Barrister is exciting because this is the first affordable housing in downtown Cincinnati in, 20 plus years. And so this is a great public-private partnership example, as well as a nonprofit, Over the Rhine Community Housing, who does a lot of really important affordable housing work in the city, partnered with Urban Sites Development Corporation to create and bring these units to fruition. So it's beautiful housing, beautiful building, and it's really making a huge difference for the 44 units, the residents that are living there now.
Great. Isaac, you want to touch on these? I know you talked about the Covington one. This is Mount Healthy.
This is a property that was in Mount Healthy, 3-1. Acquisition was $110,000. Pretty easy flip for the investor. I think that was their first deal. So they acquired it 90% of the purchase price, 100% of the renovation. They only needed $8,000 in it, but they were able to sell the property for $180,000. And I think it got done in a month, so it was a pretty good deal.
Awesome. Well, thank you to our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. We'll give everybody out there a round of applause. You made it to 3 o'clock. Happy hour is just around the corner. I know Main Strasse was the last one, but Kelly says Oktoberfest is happening this weekend in Main Strasse, in Covington.
Come on down.
We're available here afterwards if you want to talk to any of our panelists or our loan officers. And we have a table out front. LISC and CDF do. I don't know if Boost has a table out there. Okay, well, here's Isaac's table right here. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.